Thank you for volunteering your time as an official and for your interest in becoming a starter. Before you can step on deck with your microphone, we'd like you to work through 2 e-learning units built around videos provided by USA Swimming. Then we'll meet in a live webinar to talk further about the expectations and mechanics of the position and on a deck to practice before you are responsible for real starts. Topics covered in these 2 units include the philosophy of starting. What's the job? What are the expectations? Starting procedures and rules. A breakdown of the elements of the start. An introduction to a false start. Videos reviewing various situations in starting that a starter needs to deal with. And a brief introduction to starting adaptive athletes. Starter is different than any other position in officiating. It has the narrowest sphere of responsibility, but is directly related to the quality of an athlete's swim. As you progress through your learning, you will discover that while there are rules, there also is an art and feel to starting that is both instinctive and learned. The starter is a communicator who must understand their audience to connect with them. The goal is to deliver a fair start to every athlete in a heat. To do that, a starter reads the swimmer's body language to determine when they are ready to hear the Take Your Mark invitation and when they are ready for the start signal, and if there is a problem and what to do to fix it. As we already noted, experience is key to being a good starter. However, you need a framework for your experience. We're using an older USA Swimming video in order to give you basic concepts about starting and help you develop your own starter mindset. Let's start by hearing what coaches and athletes expect from a starter.
I think a good starter is somebody who's experienced, who's confident, and who is in control of the start.
A good starter has a nice loud voice and sets you off at a good time, doesn't hesitate too long or go too quickly or catch you off guard.
I think there are several things that a good starter needs to have when he's doing starting for the meets. First, he must be consistent in his commands. I think that really helps the athletes prepare. He must be calm in his commands. The tone of his voice is one that will really dictate the emotions of the athletes when they're up on the blocks. And I think finally he must have command of the field. It's important that the field listens to him, that they respond accordingly at the time they should, so that all athletes can get a fair start.
I think what makes a good starting official is one obviously with integrity. The start is a critical place of the race and a critical point in the race where everything starts. The momentum of the race, and certainly an official has to be totally focused, just as the athlete has to be focused on the start, the official has to be focused on that as well.
A good starter is someone who talks clearly and loud and doesn't hold you too long at your mark, but also doesn't start you too quickly.
The paramount responsibility of every starter is to ensure that every swimmer receives a fair start. Athletes and coaches all agree. Every competitor deserves the chance to be on equal footing when the race begins.
The mindset of a starter is key. The athletes will tell you when to do your job. Yes, even the little ones. Their body language will tell you that they are ready to hear Take Your Mark. They'll settle and stop fidgeting with caps and goggles. They'll be listening. When they have responded to your invitation and are stationary, you will learn to know when to give the start signal. Starting is an exercise in patience. Patience gives good starts. It is the guiding principle of the starter, especially before the Take Your Mark invitation. When a meet is staffed sufficiently, the starter has the luxury of just starting. To do this effectively, you will be encouraged to develop a routine for your starts, just like the athletes have a pre-race routine behind the blocks. Before each heat, you will want to watch the swimmers in the next heat behind the blocks. Start talking with them. Be present. Empty lanes or swimmers having trouble with goggles or caps will jump out at you too. When the referee blows the short whistles, decide what you will do with the microphone. Most starters have some form of ready position to initiate the start sequence. At the referee's long whistle, you will bring the mic to your mouth and be ready for a start, or to say anything the ref asks you to. When the referee extends their hand to give you the heat, you will decide if the swimmers are ready to be invited to take your mark, and after they respond, when they are ready for the start signal. With time, practice, and above all, patience, you will define your routine and begin to master the starting process. Here's some video that looks at starting procedures.
Now, with preparations in place, it's time to focus on the starting procedure. At the commencement of each heat, the referee shall signal to the swimmers by a short series of whistles to remove all clothing except for swimwear, followed by a long whistle indicating that they should take and maintain their positions on the starting platform, the deck, or in the water. In backstroke and medley relay events, at the referee's first long whistle, the swimmer shall immediately enter the water, and at the second long whistle, shall return without undue delay to the starting position. When the swimmers and officials are ready, the referee shall signal with an outstretched arm to the starter that the swimmers are under the starter's control. On the starter's command, "Take your mark," the swimmer shall immediately assume their starting position in the forward start with at least 1 foot at the front of the starting platform or on the deck. Swimmers starting in the water must have at least one hand in contact with the wall or starting platform. When all swimmers are stationary, the starter shall give the starting signal. When a swimmer does not respond promptly to the command, "Take your mark," the starter shall immediately release all swimmers with the command, "Stand up," upon which the swimmers may stand up or step off the blocks. Now, about the "Take your mark" command. After the referee has extended their arm, pause and then give the command in a conversational tone and manner. A flat or slight drop in the pitch of your voice is all that is needed. It should be natural and conversational, not mechanical. You should try to talk the swimmers down with your voice. Remember, be conversational. Don't speed up the command. Similarly, the stand command should be given in a calm, soft voice at a volume lower than the "Take your mark" command. There are a wide variety of scenarios that may occur during the start, from the moment the referee turns over the heat to the starter until the race begins.
On a good day, a starter only says 3 words to each heat of athletes. Take your mark. Piece of cake, until you put a microphone in a starter's hand and they struggle. People get nervous with that microphone and the responsibility. All of a sudden, they start yelling and overthinking. Take your mark should be conversational in tone and pace. After all, it's an invitation. Some starters let their voice travel up, making "take your mark" a question. Don't do this. Some starters race the words, unsure, nervous, rushed, who knows? And we all speak more quickly than we think we do. Initially, you will be nervous and unsure as you take the microphone. That's human. But find ways in your pre-race routine to help you relax. A deep breath, a smile, and give yourself confidence that you can do this job. Good starters practice even away from the pool, in the car, in the shower. The more starts you do, and are mindful about what you're doing, the better you will become.
A false start is an early start, a starting motion before the start signal has been given. By rule, when invited to take your mark, swimmers must assume a stationary position on the blocks, side of the pool, or in the water. We call this being set. As the starter, you are looking for all swimmers to become set before you give the start signal. If, when you have deemed everyone in the heat set, a swimmer breaks from their set position before the start signal, this is a false start. A point of emphasis here: the swimmer must be stationary for a false start to occur. If a swimmer is never stationary or loses their balance getting into position, this movement is not a false start. Starting with the live webinar and throughout your starter training and career, you will discuss many different false start scenarios, like the start sequence itself, Identifying a false start correctly will come with practice and patience. All false starts are dual confirmed, meaning both the starter and the referee independently saw the false start. You will learn the proper protocols to report and enforce the rule.
Any swimmer starting before the starting signal is given shall be disqualified if the referee independently observes and confirms the starter's observation that a violation occurred. Swimmers remaining on the starting block shall be relieved from their starting positions with a stand-up command and may step off the blocks. The starter shall restart the race upon signal by the referee. If the starting signal has been given before the disqualification is declared, the race shall continue without recall. If the referee independently observes and confirms the starter's observation that a violation occurred, the swimmer or swimmers who have false started shall be notified of the disqualification upon completion of the race. If the recall signal is activated inadvertently, no swimmer shall be charged with a false start, and the starter shall restart the race upon signal by the referee. A swimmer who would otherwise be charged with a false start may be relieved of the charge if the false start was caused by the swimmer's reaction to the stand-up command. It is essential to note that not all motion is considered grounds for disqualification. It is quite common for swimmers to twitch, to tighten muscles, or flinch in a manner that does not alter their stationary position. Again, a starter must be mindful of the nerves present on each platform. Involuntary muscle movements do not indicate a swimmer is leaving their mark. A true false start is any swimmer leaving their mark before the starting signal is given. However, in some cases, swimmers may lose their balance on the platform and fall forward into the water before the signal is given. The starter must instruct the remaining swimmers to stand down. Then the referee and the starter must confer and jointly determine if the swimmer in question truly false started, or if the swimmer lost their balance and entered the water without having had the opportunity to assume a starting position. Then no false start should be charged.
It's important to know that the starter's responsibility for the heat continues for a short while after the start. Watch the swimmers all the way through heads up to be sure that the start was fair and there were no problems. Backstroke flags fell, bulkhead broke, swimmers were still in the water from the previous heat, etc. Be ready to recall a race if both you and referee believe the start was unfair. More on this later in your training. Recalls are rare and sometimes have unintended consequences. Once you are satisfied that the heat is good, your work is done for that heat. Turn your attention back to the next heat behind the blocks and start being present and communicating with the next heat.
Let's talk a moment about distractions. We will focus on them from the athlete's perspective. Those from our perspective will come later. There are a lot of moving parts at a swim meet, all of them potentially distractions that can affect an athlete's focus at the start. Noises like a shutting door, the movement of athletes or timers behind the blocks, having to fight your way through timers and swimmers to get up on the blocks, other late arriving swimmers, you get the idea. Any of these can distract a swimmer, and this is part of the reason starters watch the next heat getting ready behind the blocks. It can help you predict when an athlete might have trouble and might need just a bit more patience before the start. The attentive eye of a starter can help a distracted swimmer have a great start. Let's watch some examples.
Distractions during the start. Every swimmer, coach, and spectator would love a smooth pre-race scenario.
Step back.
Unfortunately, distractions will occasionally occur, particularly at the age group level when literally hundreds of young athletes must arrive at their assigned lanes at the proper time. Everyone who has ever attended an age group meet has witnessed the late rush of a swimmer who is about to miss his race. In these instances, the starter must ask the other swimmers in the heat to stand down while the referee handles the situation accordingly. Also common at all levels are noises or flashes that disrupt the start. This may include last-second cheers from teammates in the stands, or an announcer inadvertently speaking at the start. Either way, the starter must ask the swimmers to stand down while the distraction is addressed. If the noise or flash occurs simultaneously with the starting signal, swimmers may be recalled and the starting sequence repeated by the referee and starter. And of course, there are always unforeseen factors that may disrupt a start as well. Whether it is a starting platform or lane line malfunction, or swift changes in the weather, it is the starter's responsibility in concert with the referee to ask swimmers to stand down until the problem is addressed. Successful starters instinctively react to unforeseen problems,
something's in the pool.
inform the referee, and halt the competition when directed to by the referee until conditions are improved.
Good eyes by the judges there, Rowdy, to notice that.
Part 3 in our discussion of the start involves the response to the command. There are times when one or more swimmers fail to react to the command, "Take your mark." While this could mean that the swimmer is simply in his preferred starting position, it is also possible that the command was not heard. In either case, the starter should ask the heat to stand, pause to let the swimmers get readjusted, and then repeat the command. There are also instances when swimmers do not move at least 1 foot to the front of the platform on command. Current rules dictate that competitors must have at least 1 foot at the front of the platform before the starting signal is given. Once again, the starter should ask the heat to stand and then repeat the "take your mark" command. If the problem persists, swimmers should be asked to step down and the referee should inform the offending swimmers of the requirement before blowing the long whistle and repeating the starting sequence. In backstroke events, starters must watch for swimmers who place their toes over the lip of the gutter or timing pad. Should a starter witness toes curled over the top, the starter should warn the swimmer of the infraction. Example, lane 6, toes please. If the "take your mark" command has been given and then the toes come up, the heat must be asked to stand down while the starter reminds the lane of the rule. Then the long whistle must be repeated, signaling swimmers to place their feet, and the "take your mark" command is given again. Once again, a starter must keep in mind his primary objective, to ensure a fair start to all. A swimmer shall not be disqualified for an illegal starting position at the start if the race is permitted to proceed. Enforcement of the correct starting position is the responsibility of the starter.
So you get the idea from that clip that things can and will go wrong. And it's more than just distractions around an athlete. Starters also must work to maintain focus and put distractions to the side. And they must know what to do when a distraction presents itself. You will have lots of opportunities to develop a database of solutions. When to use the "stand please" command when a noise could distract the start, when to ask athletes to step down from the blocks, etc. Unfortunately, you can also have trouble with the start system that will require your outside voice to release the swimmers. Let's watch.
This section will be broken down into 4 headings: equipment problems, distractions during a start, response to the command, and starting position. Part 1, equipment problems. There are 5 common occurrences that may prevent a starter from conducting a clean start. First, the microphone is not working. In this situation, the starter must ask the swimmers to stand until reception is restored. If the problem cannot be fixed immediately, the swimmers may be asked to relax or to step down. Once the problem is rectified, it is the referee's responsibility to begin the starting sequence again by extending their arm or by blowing the long whistle if the field has stepped down. Second, the microphone cuts off as the starter is announcing, "Take your mark." The same procedure must be followed as in the first case. Next, there are times when the horn does not sound when the start button is depressed. In these situations, swimmers must once again be asked to step down until the problem is corrected. Then the start sequence must be repeated. Similarly, There are times when inadvertent or extraneous events might occur, such as the start button being depressed, but a clear click sounds rather than the horn. Swimmers should be asked to step down while the situation is dealt with. However, starters must be mindful that this sound can often trigger a start from competitors. Should this occur, a recall must be sounded with no false start charged to the field. Once again, it is the referee's responsibility to begin the starting sequence with the long whistle. Lastly, there are times when the starting horn emits a double beep. If this occurs and there is no sign of a reaction, then the race may proceed accordingly. However, if even one swimmer appears affected by the double beep, then the race should be recalled and restarted.
A starter's responsibilities extend to all athletes, including athletes who might be blind, deaf, or have other physical or cognitive issues. USA Swimming strongly encourages meet hosts to include these athletes. You will bring your same relaxed, inviting, patient self to a heat with an adaptive swimmer, but with some special considerations. Coaches are asked to notify the meet referee of the needs of adaptive swimmers. For example, blind athletes may need help getting to and up on the blocks. They may also have a tapper at each end of the pool to notify them of a turn. Hearing impaired swimmers require hand signals from the starter, as well as additional accommodations like a portable strobe or being moved closer to the starter. As part of your on-deck training, you will practice these hand signals so you can deliver a fair start. The referee and the starter work as a team to deliver great starts for adaptive athletes. Here's more about special circumstances that arise in starting.
Previous material should prepare any starter for a wide variety of meet situations. There are additional factors which must be discussed in order to handle unique cases. The first, starting of deaf and hard of hearing athletes. Swimmers with impaired hearing require a visual cue. This can be either a strobe light or the starter's arm signal. If requested by the swimmer, it is at the referee's discretion to reassign lanes within a heat in order for the strobe or arm signal to be more easily visible by the deaf swimmer. When calling the heat to the starting platforms, a starter's raised arm must coincide with the referee's long whistle to notify the start of the next race. Next, the starter must move his arm to shoulder level when he delivers the "take your mark" command. Then, at the exact moment the starter gives the starting signal, he will move his arm to the side of his body to signify the start for the hearing impaired athlete. Some hearing impaired swimmers would prefer to focus on the water surface and wait for the reflection of the strobe as their cue to the start, rather than beginning with a turned head staring at the starter. In these cases, starters must be particularly mindful of induced false starts, as a spectator's camera could easily be mistaken for the strobe. As a starter in this situation, what would you do? If it is determined that a camera's flash was the cause of the false start, the heat must be recalled. Another situation you may encounter as a starter is the occasion when a swimmer needs to start in the water. Be patient, as a disabled swimmer may need help getting into the water. The look of the field at the start will change, and you may have to adjust your position to be able to observe all the swimmers. As we come to the end of the main section of the video, let's review the key points we have covered. Remember that a starter's goal is to ensure that every swimmer receives a fair start. Do your homework ahead of time before the meet starts. Review the rules, know the events, and work with a meet referee. Review the starting procedure before the meet starts. As the first heat steps up, be patient, apply what you have learned, and then let the swimmers swim. We hope this video has given you the tools that you need to become a confident and proficient starter. Now it is up to you to go out and hone your skills. We encourage you to work as many meets as you are able to. There is no substitute for that on-the-job experience. Good luck, and we'll see you on the deck.
As you have seen, there's a lot that goes into being a good starter. The starter needs to be an effective communicator with swimmers. Their presence, presentation, and tone mean a lot. Athletes notice if you are smiling or if you look stressed. That stress can travel across the starting blocks to stressed swimmers as well. Good starters live in a zone of calm and patience, oblivious to the chaos and distractions around them. They live for the next good start. Being focused and grounded helps deliver a fair start to every swimmer. A pre-race routine, a smile, good preparation and instincts all help a fair start. Good eyes and good deck awareness, even in a bubble, will make a big difference to a great start.
Remember that the goal is to get you ready for a live webinar on this material. Start jotting down questions and comments you have to make that experience worthwhile. And of course, the ultimate prize is to get you on deck, with your patience and relaxed manner, to start putting all of this into practice.
Thank you for volunteering your time. We hope you have a better understanding of what it takes to be an official. If you have any technical issues or questions about training, please feel free to reach out to the committee.